Gamemon Wireless Pro Controller for the Nintendo Switch is one of my favorite third-party controllers thus far, and I'll be going over just why that is so during the course of this review. But what's more, the company behind this little product is very interesting, because they're sending over 2 more Nintendo Switch accessories on which I have been working with them on a design and marketing consultancy basis, helping to bring to market 2 exclusive Nintendo Switch accessories which, if all goes accordingly, will pretty much blow you out of the water. I can guarantee that much. And yes, that does include that arcade stick which I have shown off previously, well actually the faceplate artwork which I have designed and which you're looking at right now. And on that note, let's quickly dive in and let's have a look at the Gamemon Wireless Pro Controller for the Nintendo Switch. As a company providing OEM support or support, meaning you can customize their products to your labeling and packaging, they tend to cut down on product packaging itself. So we have a basic box, nothing fancy there, and inside of the box we find the controller nicely bubble wrapped and a slightly outdated micro USB cable for easy charging. There it is. The first and frankly one of the most important aspects of any controller is the way it lays in your hand, and in that regard the engineers over at Gamemon have gotten it right with this controller. It might look a little blocky and rough around the edges, but it feels comfortable enough even during longer play sessions lasting for several hours on end. Especially the part where your fingers curve over the shoulder buttons feels really good, and the overall layout of the buttons and joysticks is really appropriate. The gyroscopic and motion controls work just as can be expected, and the rumble feature provides for some serious haptic feedback. Tucked inside of the handles are located the motors, and when I say serious haptic feedback, I mean exactly that. This controller has definitely stronger rumble than the official Nintendo Switch Pro Controller or Joy-Cons, and it might be something you have to get used to, but I kinda like it. The joysticks are nicely placed and provide just enough curvature on the top, not too concave, just done right. And around the edges are 4 little ridges helping you to keep your thumbs from slipping off with just the minimal effort. It's really nice touch, you guys. The A, B, X and Y buttons are quite the standard buttons with comfortable size and shape and little travel time. I really like to have that just enough for you to feel the button pressing down, but not that much that you're actually losing time or have to put in too much effort. And it also is not too clicky. I like it. They're of good quality and the spacing is really well done. What isn't all that comfortable though is the split D-pad, unfortunately. As confirmed by the manufacturer, we cannot swap this for a proper D-pad, so this might not be the best controller if you're planning on playing any of those arcade classics. It isn't all that different really from the Joy-Cons, although they have spaced out the buttons a little closer to each other so you can roll your thumb from one direction to the other just a little more comfortably so than with the official Joy-Cons, but I do prefer a D-pad. One thing you have to know with this controller is that you have to press down just a little more so than the slight brush, which I actually prefer to play. You have to get used to that a little bit. In the center of the controller you'll find all of these support functions, including a large plastic button at the center for the home function, rather neatly done so with really less travel time. And on the side are 2 rubberized buttons for the plus and minus features. Yeah, big enough and nicely spaced as well. Don't really have to move my hands too much to press them. And in the top row you find the screen capture button on the right side. That is not the most intuitive location. I would like to have that on the left, but okay, no problem. And on the left side we have the included turbo function, which is easy enough to use. I'll just show that in a little bit. And in between those two we have the LED for the controller status, showing when you're paired and the actual player number once it is paired. In order to pair it up with the Nintendo Switch for the first time, simply hold down the home button whilst being in the pairing screen. It is hands down the best and cleanest way of pairing, as most of the third-party controllers will have you hold down a combination of buttons to establish the same effect. However, as with most third-party controllers, this one can't wake the Switch from sleep mode. The turbo setup is as straightforward as it comes, and I'm going to show you just how that works by pressing the A, B, X and Y buttons, or holding them down. It's only recognizing as a single button press. Hold down the turbo button and the button of your choosing and hold down the button and you'll see it being affected by the turbo function. Hold down again and you have it cleared. A common thing in the controller scene is moving over an existing controller to a newer system, and that becomes quite obvious in this case when looking at these shoulder buttons. The labeling of them LB, LT, RB and RT is native to the Xbox line of products, and the lower buttons are actually analog triggers. Now the difference between analog and digital buttons, especially in the case of shoulder triggers, is that in the case of digital buttons like the L and R buttons here, it is either press or not pressed. It's on or off, which obviously doesn't require much travel time. Whereas in the case of analog buttons like the ZL and ZR buttons here, you need much more travel time. There's a whole range in between, and that becomes quite handy in, for example, racing games where you have that motion of the gas pedal to control the speed by which you're going. Up to this point, the Nintendo Switch only recognizes digital inputs, with Ubisoft's Trials as an exception, as it makes use of the Nintendo GameCube controller, which does have analog buttons for that effect. So it is interesting to see where this situation is going if we can see more support for other games coming as well. That would mean a serious game changer for many controllers out there, but as for now, it means that these lower trigger buttons have a relatively long travel distance, which is at least at this point in time, a wasted motion, and this controller's weakest feature by far. At the bottom of the controller is located a small reset button, which you can press if your controller goes haywire. The battery inside of this controller gives you just about 20 hours of gameplay, which is absolutely fantastic, especially coupled with the automatic power off while not in use. At the front of the controller, or backside depending on how you look at it, you'll find the micro USB port for easy charging with the provided cable, and charge it quick and nicely so. All in all guys, I think it's pretty clear why I like this controller so much. The overall layout of the buttons and the comfortable joysticks simply make it a good bet. Add on top of that the oddly ergonomic design and you have yourself set up for multiple hours of fun-filled gameplay without cramping up. The controller can be yours for a mere $27, which indeed means you can buy 3 of these bad boys for the same price as the official Nintendo Switch Pro Controller. So you have yourself set up for a low budget for 4-player multiplayer action, provided of course someone uses a pair of Joy-Cons. The controller of course doesn't come with the NFC support, something which we have seen with a JYS mini controller, which was pretty damn neat, but this controller does of course include the gyroscopic and motion sensors, and other than that you have the added turbo function as well. Oh, and if you're into PC gaming, there's that compatibility as well. Guys, I'll be looking at some more controllers coming up soon, and as stated in the introduction, I have a few surprises in store for you guys, so be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be amongst the first to see the videos drop. Hit the like button if you have enjoyed this review, and do me a favor and leave a comment in the section down below and let me know what you think of this controller and if you are planning on picking this one up. And I will see you next time.